If you've been looking for a reason to return to the world of Skyrim but can't quite bring yourself to play yet another port of The Elder Scrolls V, The Elder Scrolls Online's new Greymoor expansion provides just such an opportunity. Alas, it's just fine. Its quests and setting are appetizing enough if you like your Nordic-themed fantasy served with a side of vampires, but it's hard to shake the feeling that ZeniMax Online's latest dish left the kitchen a tad too early. It's hard to fault Greymoor for its looks. The setting of Western Skyrim might be a dreary marsh, but there's a beauty to it, and it shows how far ESO's graphics have come since we first saw the Rift and Eastmarch back in 2014. Unfortunately, some creativity gets mired in the drive for nostalgia. Maybe we can accept that the fortress city of Solitude looks exactly the same despite the story being 800 years before Skyrim, but nearby Morthal? It's just a handful of shacks by a swamp. Surely they could have made some changes just to make it distinctive. Fortunately for visual variety, Western Skyrim takes up only around half of Greymoor's playable area. The rest of it unfolds in Blackreach, a gorgeous, sprawling zone with glowing mushrooms the size of redwoods. Blackreach isn't new to ESO though. We also saw it back in Skyrim, but never on so remarkable a scale as this. As with excellent ESO DLCs like Murkmire, it's a reminder of what wonder ZeniMax can achieve when it's creating rather than recreating. Greymoor is a little too much of the latter. You'll find no dragons in this version of Skyrim, but Greymoor does riff on the Elder Scrolls V's vampire-heavy Dawnguard expansion from 2012. The story has a couple of moving moments, and Jennifer Hale's usual stellar voice acting in the role of Lyris helps make up for some weak moments.
Plus, there's a smuggler hiding unknown contraband in a warehouse down by the docks.
And there are quite a few of those. On the whole, Greymoor's main questline is predictable and brief, and at times it feels like a lesser version of last year's Elsewhere story in its broad strokes. The story is also the foundation for the Harrow Storms that randomly pop up at set spots. They look cool, but in practice they're just a new variation on the Dark Anchors and similar events that have been in ESO for years, and their loot isn't even all that good. You'll find that sense of familiarity creeping throughout the rest of Greymoor too. It's got almost everything you'd expect from ESO these days, which means you'll find 6 soloable dungeons called Delves, 2 public dungeons, 6 world bosses, and, for high-end players, a new raid-like trial. The raid aside, that's roughly 15 to 20 hours of play. If you're new to ESO and you simply want to visit Skyrim again, it's easy to recommend because it allows you to drop straight into the new content. And Greymoor does come with one genuinely new feature that should be great for new players in particular. The new Antiquities profession feels a lot like World of Warcraft's Archaeology profession, but comes with a couple of mini-games that make it considerably more interesting. First, you'll scry for an item to minimize the number of dig sites you'll need to visit before finding said item, and you'll have to dig in the dirt with brushes and shovel to actually retrieve it. The process gets harder with the quality of the relic. Antiquities are attractive because you can get cosmetic gear, a mount, or rare new mythic gear from them, but they're also great because they're a way for casual players to make good cash and enjoy expensive things like house customization. The Vampire skill line also got a major overhaul in the latest patch, so you don't actually have to buy Greymoor to experience it. Some of the changes will be hard for longtime vampires to adjust to, like taking more damage and abilities that require more resources the stronger you grow as a vampire. For that matter, it's often frustrating to realize that some key NPCs won't bother talking to you if you're the highest stage of vampire, so you'll need to wait out the condition for a couple of hours or swig an occasionally expensive potion if you want them to get chatty again. The overhaul represents an improvement in role-playing, but it arguably makes vampirism less appealing for group content. Speaking of waiting, you might want to wait a bit before jumping into Greymoor as a whole if you're interested. The obscene server lag that plagued the first couple of days after launch is largely gone now, but plenty of bugs remain. In one of the worst, some enemies you find in Delves are completely untargetable and invulnerable. Let's live to fight another day, shall we? If you love gorgeous landscapes above all else, The Elder Scrolls Online's Greymoor expansion offers a strongly nostalgic return to the northwestern corner of Skyrim. The formulaic story isn't as compelling, but it's at least held up by a couple of standout characters. The rest of Greymoor is largely a variation on the familiar ESO formula, although a new Antiquities system introduces a welcome new way to earn cash and cosmetic items without too much effort. There is still a lot of Skyrim that we haven't seen in Elder Scrolls Online. When it inevitably returns to regions like Whiterun or Markarth, let's hope we get something better than this. For more on The Elder Scrolls Online, check out our reviews of last year's expansion Elsewhere and of its sister MMO, Fallout 76 Wastelanders. And for everything else, stick with IGN.